Welcome to episode 21 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Return of the Archons.
In this week's episode, an Earth-like civilization is infiltrated by Kirk and a landing party after Sulu appears to be brainwashed by some kind of cult. With only a small underground network for support, they must discover the source of the locals' unusual behaviour. But can they succeed before they too are indoctrinated?
Are you of the body?
The body
Is one. Blessed be the body. And health to all of its parts.
Good evening, Ian. How's your body?
Oh, healthy in most of its parts.
But which one?
99% healthy.
Whose body are you in?
Well, the one.
Before we start, I should say, in the office next door to where we're recording, there's a bit of work going on. You might hear the drills right now, actually.
It's very exciting.
It's not, it's annoying.
Annoying, sorry, that's the word. Yes.
Can't do too much about it.
We can't do anything about it. I suspect that they will knock off fairly shortly. Get the asbestos moving around.
I don't know about knocking off. I wish they would F off.
Well, one or the other, whatever happens first.
So apologies if that comes through.
Yet another completely unique episode, I thought, this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wouldn't say it was a good episode, but it was noteworthy. It was interesting.
Yeah, it borrows thematic elements from other episodes, but in terms of the staging and the story, it was very singular, I would say.
It borrows and is borrowed from thematically. I think that some of the initial notes I made was that I was reminded of The Wicker Man, The Stepford Wives, The Wizard of Oz, and The Purge.
Okay, I've got some macro sort of similarities to the Square of Gothos in terms of the machine behind the man.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Anything you want to say before we begin this week?
Well, nothing particular. Just remind folks to keep in touch with us on the old social media channels. We're at Trek Podcast all over social media. You can find us there.
Like a rash.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And keep telling your friends about us if they like Star Trek.
If you have any friends. But as you're a Star Trek nerd, you probably don't have pals.
Plenty. You've got plenty of friends.
Sure.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, internet. Yeah,
It's a welcoming community.
Internet friends is fine, isn't it? That's what we want.
Stop it.
Just tell people on
Let's
Twitter,
move on with the episode. Shall we get started?
Why not? Let's crack on.
An unusual opening. We're out on a 20th century looking, or maybe 19th century looking American high street.
Yeah, this is one of the points I'd like to discuss. Why does it look like, and the clothes that we see them wearing?
The clothes are wrong for Sulu, of course. He complains about this.
It does, yeah. Yeah, we're on this town street, and we get straight into the action.
Immediately.
Sulu and a chap called O'Neill, wearing these old-fashioned clothes, try and run from approaching cloaked creatures carrying staffs.
Yeah, from all directions. It's one of those sort of terrifying scenes where the enemy isn't running, but you can't get away from them. People have had that dream, I think.
Of course. The old heavy legs, the old porridge legs.
And they just walk closer and closer, and there's nowhere for you to go.
We hear that Sulu and this O'Neill are a scouting party, and I think they're after some sort of help.
Well, they're after help now, because they're getting chased by these guys. Sulu requests an emergency transport, but O'Neill isn't prepared to stand there and wait for that to happen.
No, he runs off, and Sulu gets touched by one of these staffs, which appears to cause immediate physical pleasure, gratification.
He certainly seems a lot happier.
Oh yeah, there's a glow about the lad before he is transported back up. So it's a little parting gift.
Indeed. On board the Enterprise, Sulu appears in the transporter room with some unusual things to say.
Yeah, well, firstly, he's got this glazed smile on his face, and Kirk asks where O'Neill is, but all Sulu can do is point at his captain and tell him he's not of the body.
No, he's not. Not that any of them know what the body is at this stage.
No.
Sulu also makes references to a Landru and calls the planet he's just left a paradise.
Yeah, I think before that, Scotty calls Sir McCoy.
Well, obviously because Sulu seems a little bit the worse for wear.
And he goes from gormless to aggressive as he points to a blue shirt and claims that he did it and that they knew they were Archons.
Something strange going on here. At this point he complains about the pile of clothes that he's carrying and throws them, I believe.
He does, yeah. Kirk tries to calm him and Sulu returns to being less lucid and repeating this name, Landru.
Kirk's asking him for information about the planet below, and all Sulu can tell him is that it's a paradise. It's a paradise.
Yeah, I think it's full of it's a wonderful place and full of the sweetest people in the universe.
And we hit the credits.
Yes, before we have this week's first Captain's Logs 3156.2. Tell me about that. A
bit like tomorrow is yesterday, we get a bit more information now from Kirk, who tells us that the Enterprise is orbiting a planet called Beta 3, trying to find a trace of a starship called the Archon that disappeared 100 years earlier. A search party, which was Sulu and O'Neill, had been sent to the planet, but only Sulu has returned and he's in a highly agitated condition.
And the outcome of this is that Kirk and 5 others, including McCoy and Spock, must now beam down and investigate.
Indeed.
So that's where we go, down to a Beta 3.
They're all dressed up in their fancy outfits.
Yeah, I'd noted like lawmen from the Old West, like a sort of Doc Holliday or that type of...
Yeah, colonial maybe.
Yeah.
Certainly it's not 20th century clothing, it's not anything from contemporary to the series.
Nah, some of it reminded me actually a bit of a river boatman.
Okay.
Apart from Spock, he's wearing, for some reason, why is he wearing a... Is it because to hide his ears, is that?
Yes.
Ah, right, okay.
He's wearing a big hood to keep his ears hidden so folk don't say it's an alien.
Yeah.
That's a recurring trope, you get that every now and then.
Okay. Straight away, a slow-moving and a silent man nods as he moves past him on the street, and Spock notes that he's an odd, vacant but content expression on his face, and Kirk agrees, just like Sulu.
Indeed, this is a recurring trend for them.
And at this point we get a view of a busier street where everyone appears to have the same countenance, and as they move on, they're approached by a creepy-looking character called Bilar, who stops to chat.
Joy to you, friends.
Joy to you.
You be strangers. Come for the festival, eh, ya?
Yes.
Got a place to sleep it off yet? Go round to Rager's house. He's got rooms. But you'll have to hurry. It's almost the red hour.
This, festival, it starts at 6 o'clock?
Tula! These folks come for the festival. Your daddy can put them up, can't he?
You're from the valley?
We've, just arrived.
My father'll be glad to put you up, though. It's right over there.
Why are they talking like that?
Because they're not thinking, they're mindless.
Does that mean you talk in that odd manner?
You're not rushing, you're not trying to emphasise anything.
They're emphasising the wrong points, the wrong parts.
It's a bit strange, isn't it? And the acting probably doesn't deserve much of a accreditation, does it?
Well, it depends if they're meant to. Well, I mean, they are.
Well, I guess this is what they've been asked to do.
They're meant to act creepy and odd and weird.
I think it sounds worse on audio only. Like when you get the facial expressions to go with it, you get this complete picture of this guy who is completely... It's almost like he's been lobotomised.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Things take a swift turn as all the people start screaming and attacking each other. That was after the bell there, obviously. They're ripping off their clothes. One woman jumps in Kirk for a kiss, which doesn't immediately stop. I think he...
Well, no. He's used to this by now.
Who can resist him? There is now a full-on riot taking place.
There is. It's absolutely mental.
Including a man and a woman who are about to get down to it on the street, I think, by the looks of it. And so, dodging some rubber bricks, the party flee into a nearby building.
Yes, which conveniently is Rager's.
Yeah, it's like the names in this episode. It's like Rager and...
I didn't like the stylised speech. I didn't like the names.
No?
It frustrates me a little bit. They're the other side of the galaxy and everything's similar to Earth.
Like a backlot.
Yeah, quite conveniently.
Inside this building are 3 older men who again ask them if they have come for festival.
Yeah, they're quite surprised initially to see this group come piling in.
Yeah. Taking a chance, Kirk says yes, before one of the others asks if the man is Redger, father of Tula.
Yeah, this is Landru, I think, who's asking this question. I think there's you'll probably have noticed through the episode he keeps going on about Tula.
Yeah.
But they've cut the storyline where he actually has a romantic interest in Tula, but it now just looks like he's weirdly obsessed.
Yes, I didn't particularly like Landru.
No, I don't like him at all.
No.
I hope he gets left behind.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
When Redger confirms that that's who he is told he needs to help his daughter. She's outside, and for the first time we see what looks like genuine emotion. Yeah,
he has a degree of concern, but he states simply that this is the will of Landru.
Yeah, and it's festival time, so that's just the way it is.
My favourite Landru moment is when he played both the killers in that episode of Columbo. Martin Landru.
Yes, of course. Another older man called Hackham, he pipes up at this point and tells Redger that Kirk and his men are young and shouldn't be excused from being outside just because they're visitors.
Yeah, so there seems to be some sort of pass that these older men get. Yeah. And they obviously aren't as out of control as the younger people.
Yeah, because the third man, he supports Redger. Even though Hackham thinks that they should go outside. Redger then leads them to their rooms against the wishes of Hackham, who reiterates that they should be with Tula and claims that lawgivers, or the lawgivers, should know. So the lawgivers are the cloaked figures, is that right? Okay.
Hackham's a way to grass them in.
He is.
Nobody likes a grass.
No one.
Snitches get stitches.
That's what they say, apparently.
One of the first things I taught my son to say.
So it's the only moral compass that he requires.
Exactly.
Hackham's a bit of an arse, isn't he?
Yeah.
Either him or Landru,
They deserve each other.
They do, and they'll hopefully get each other.
We'll find out. Up the stairs, Rager shows the landing party into a sparsely furnished room. It's got some beds, I think. I don't think enough beds.
Mm-hmm.
And some Spartan lighting arrangements.
Yeah, I should say that Hackham makes a big deal about it. I think when he mentions the lawgivers...
Yeah, no, he's getting really animated. Yeah, he's a way out to
but the other chap says that, well, at least you already know, because apparently, they know everything, they're omnipresent, as it were.
Mocking them.
Yeah.
Yes. That might come back and bite him.
Let's hope so.
We'll see. There's a lot of things we're going to see. We've previewed the entire rest of the episode already. Rager, having brought these men upstairs, is surprised when Kirk starts asking about Landru and about Festival, as if he doesn't already know.
Yeah, and also the fact that he doesn't intend going to the festival. I think that surprises.
Yeah, I don't think Rager considered it was a matter of choice. Outside, we get a quick look at this sort of pandemonium that's going on.
Well, it's a full-on riot, isn't it?
There's, property being destroyed, there's people getting together, and there's people falling apart.
It's burning the place. There's crazed looks on all the people's faces. In fact, someone screams festival whilst jumping into a window. It's like a reverse of the Old West when you get thrown out of a bar. Yeah. Jumping through it.
I wonder if they could put that in reverse. Maybe they meant to originally. And so random things come flying out the windows as well.
Yeah, it's quite funny actually. And so Kirk ponders Landru and decides that they have until tomorrow. Don't know why.
Yeah, he just assumes this is going to last one night.
And so sets his team some research tasks to try and determine what could be causing this madness.
Yes, and although we didn't see it, Rager has left by this point, and Kirk and Spock head off to make a plan so they don't go out aimlessly in the morning.
Indeed. We cut to early the next morning.
6 a.m.
Yep. They seem to have forgotten about the research and making a plan because they're all just sort of lying in bed sleeping.
Yeah, nobody mentions anything. The minute the clock strikes 6, though, we see the fighting and the lusting come to an immediate stop.
Yeah, so this has been ongoing throughout the entire night until 6 o'clock. So, yeah, a little bit like, as I mentioned at the top, it reminded me of the Purge.
Yeah. Did you get the impression it was voluntary, or did you think it was something that they weren't controlling individually?
I don't think they were controlling that.
Yeah, that's what I got as well. So it's not like it turns 6 and then you can choose to do whatever you want. It turns 6 and you don't have control over what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kirk hears crying outside, so he takes his team. They're going to go and investigate.
Yeah, it is Tula, who has returned home distressed and dishevelled, and is now being comforted by her father Rhaegar. And for some reason, McCoy and Spock walk over and simply take her away.
Yeah, a bit weird.
Yeah, these are strangers. No one knows who you are. Your daughter is utterly distressed.
Yeah.
And these two strange chaps just take her away and say, we'll sort her out.
Oh, to make it worse, Kirk says they're going to give her a shot of something.
Yeah, a tranquiliser.
It could be anything.
Yeah, Lindstrom at this point as well, he criticises Rhaegar's parenting.
He's still fuming. He's got this immediate issue with Tula, and it's not sort of teased out in the episode.
No.
Kirk, again, raises questions about Landru at this stage, which leads Rhaegar and Tamar to one conclusion.
What's that?
They are not of the body.
No, clearly not. Through in the living room with his daughter, Rhaegar asks nervously if they are Archons, and Kirk enigmatically asks, well, what if we are?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to commit because he doesn't know what an Archon is.
Well, he does. He knows that they're here investigating the starship Archon that went missing. He mentioned that in his first captain's log.
Yeah, okay. But he doesn't know how... Okay, so he doesn't know how they are perceived.
What that would mean to them,
yeah.
Yes.
Rhaegar goes on to... Or Rhaegar. What's his name? Rhaegar?
Rager.
That's not Rager, is it?
Yeah.
Is it Rager?
Yeah.
Rager. No.
That's what the guy called him. You listened to him in the first clip.
Rhaegar.
You call him whatever you want.
Rhaegar goes on to reveal that it was said that more Archons would follow, but before they can discuss the matter of the Archons, the older Tamer states that they need to be hidden from the lawgivers.
Kirk's not up for that.
He's not, but before they can do anything anyway, that little rat, Haecum, returns with 2 of the hooded goons and accuses Tamer of mockery.
He says it was just in jest, but they immediately execute him anyway.
Yeah, with their sparkly brooms.
That's unfortunate for him.
You don't mess around with the lawgivers, apparently.
Apparently not.
They then turn their attention to Kirk and the crew, insisting they come with them to be absorbed, and that Landru is good and gentle. But, I mean, why would you accept or believe that after what they have done?
Exactly.
Doesn't look good or gentle, does he?
Neither. When Kirk questions the instructions of the lawgivers, you can see that Haecum considers himself vindicated.
But this disobedience is enough to confuse them, and I think Spock is quite impressed, but also realises that there might be a tactic here, a strategy that they can take advantage of, or a weakness.
I've got that note as well. Spock looks impressed.
Yeah.
He raises it with Kirk, who says it was basically a instinctive response based on these observations of the lawgivers.
Yes, and I think the observation of how this society has acted.
Yeah.
They have behaved with complete obedience, and that therefore the lawgivers aren't experienced or don't know how to handle any sort of refusal or...
Yeah, disobedience, yeah.
So, after conferring, the lawgivers try to rephrase their request/demand.
They conclude that the only possible option is that Kirk didn't understand what they were saying to him.
But again, Kirk simply says no and takes one of their weapons, which he gives to Spock.
Yes, they're not happy with this.
No. And he is astonished that it is simply a hollow tube. So I think this is quite an interesting development and quite an important message, or part of the theme that runs through this episode. When you look at it, yeah, it's just a hollow tube. People are willing to believe what they want to believe, what they're told to believe.
To be fair, it did kill that guy a minute ago.
Yeah, how did they do that, actually? That's a point. Wait a second, magic does exist then. They do have powers.
Izzy wizzy, let's get busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they transformed Sulu with their magic stick earlier on.
Yes, it's not all in the mind.
No, it's not psychological. Is that what your conclusion was going to be?
Yeah, well, I think that's what Spock was saying as well. Look, there's nothing here. They're just using this.
Yeah, he comes to a different conclusion shortly after this, though.
Okay.
Haecum leaves anyhow, and as the lawgivers struggle to come up with some kind of coherent response, Rhaegar leads the landing party to a safe place. Or he certainly intends to lead them to a safe place.
Yeah, I think at this point the lawgivers are starting to commune with Landru.
Well, that's what it appears that they're doing, but who can say?
He apparently will be on his way, and this gives them a chance to escape. So we're on the street. They walk slowly outside, taking in the destruction caused by Festival as they pass and they greet the people who are walking by.
Yeah, Lindstrom embarrasses himself once again.
Tell me about this.
He urges Rager to do something with Bilar. He's the man who caused Tula to be upset.
We didn't see that at all.
No.
They were all at it.
Yeah, everyone was involved with all sorts of things. But anyhow, Rager points out that this is not what happened. It's not Bilar who should be to blame. They just don't understand it's Landru who makes these things happen.
And he encourages them to hurry up. However, they run out of time as everyone in the street pauses before picking up weapons, and Rager explains that Landru is summoning the body. Telepathy, according to Spock.
Becomes a zombie movie at this point.
It does, yeah. So Kirk orders phasers to be set to stun, and they try to escape down an alley. However, they get trapped at each end.
Well, yes, but they've got their phasers.
Yeah,
which are set to stun, so they stun some people.
Wide stun as well, I think he says, or something like that.
Yeah, it's even in the redone version, it's not the greatest effect, is it?
No. But yes, it's groups of people at a time.
Yeah.
As they pass one of the victims of the stunning, they recognise him.
Yes, it's O'Neill.
Who, according to Rager, is no longer one of the crew. He has been absorbed.
Yes, but Kirk insists, nevertheless, that they bring him along. Leave no man behind.
Yeah.
Except for all the other ones that he's left behind many times in the past.
He's quite happy to leave bodies and people around. That's not a problem at all.
They arrive, or we see them arrive from the inside at some kind of ancient chamber.
That's a stone basement, or, an ancient chamber, fair enough.
Full of wisdom.
Clearly.
Or at least a electric light, which is a bit of a surprise.
Well, they seem impressed. It looked like a sort of white canvas, a blank white canvas to me.
Yeah, but it lights up, which is not in keeping with the lighting. It was gas lighting, I think, at the previous building.
Yeah, Rager says it comes from a time before Landru.
Yes.
So, can you explain this? Landru has apparently been around for...
Well, Rager says, some say Landru came 6,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's the only reference we get to when Landru came.
Okay, they could just be making it up.
Yeah.
Like the Bible.
Yeah, basically. It could be fictional. Or it could be... Well, it's obviously not fictional if Landru, we see Landru, but...
we don't see Landru, we see...
A projection of Landru, but the timings could be anything.
Yeah. Spock claims the technology is inconsistent with the environment that they are currently in, although Kirk does mention the staffs and the broadcast system.
Indeed. Spock then notes strong nearby power readings.
Yeah, he's got his tricorder out, I believe.
He does.
And he detects a radiation source coming from all directions, and McCoy notes that O'Neill will be coming round shortly, which startles Rager, who insists that this can't be allowed to happen, as he has been absorbed.
The body absorbs its enemies. It only kills when it has to. When the first Archons came, they were free, out of control, opposing the will of Landru. Many were killed. Many more were absorbed. When he regains consciousness, Landru will find us through him. And if the others come...
What others?
Those like you and me, who resist Landru.
An underground. How are you organized?
In threes. Myself, Tamar, who's dead now, and one other.
Who?
I don't know. Tamar was my contact.
Give me a decision, Captain. He's coming out of it.
He must not regain consciousness. He'll destroy us all. He's of the body.
Give him a shot. Keep him asleep. Roger. I want some answers. This underground. Landru is so powerful. How do you survive?
I don't know, Captain. Some of us escaped the directives. Not many, but a few. It was that way when the first Archons came.
The Archons? Tell me about them.
They had invaded the body, but they resisted the will of Landru. You see, Landru had pulled them down from the skies.
Pulled them down from the skies? A starship? Mr. Spock, those power readings you took, are they...
Powerful enough to destroy a starship? Affirmative.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Clearly.
Scotty's forgotten to mention this, but when they get in touch, he reports that the Enterprise is in a decaying terminal orbit and fighting to stay in one piece.
Yeah.
He just hadn't got around to contacting Kirk.
Oh, by the way, yeah, so I think they've got about 12 hours left before they hit the atmosphere, meaning Kirk will have to try and shut down the beams at source.
It could be, to be fair to Scotty, that given the colonial type or the environment they were going into, he was told not to communicate with them.
Right, yeah.
Because it would give them away if they were undercover.
Sure, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They never follow that rule in any other episode.
We're still in the stone room. Spock then picks up unblockable probing sensor beams and...
He picks up what?
Unblockable probing sensor beams.
Probing sensor beams. Oh, we're being probed.
Yeah, they are.
It's an alien probe.
Yes. And Redger states that it is Landru as he goes into a good old-fashioned swoon.
Then Landru shows up.
Yeah, we get a vision of him for the first time as he materialises in front of them and identifies himself. Spock immediately sees it's just a projection.
He does. That's probably because it's two-dimensional.
Kirk is impressed that there's no device in the room that would support this. So there's some technology that's fairly advanced.
There is, yeah. It's one of those mysteries that isn't really solved in this episode, I think.
Yeah.
The original technology. Well, I say that, I think it is solved, but we'll discuss it later on.
Okay. Landru has a message for them.
Yes, he does.
Can you remember what it was?
They're going to be absorbed.
Well, he claims that they have come to a peaceful world that has no hate or evil or wars, anything like that, and they are an infection. But Kirk states that they come in peace and mean no harm.
Spock points out that it's not listening, it's just speaking.
Yeah, are you an idiot, Kirk? Stop. It's like when you talk to someone and that, when you phone out, well, used to back in the day, you'd phone someone at an answer machine and say hi, and you go, oh, hi, and you start talking and then realise that you were speaking to a machine.
It's like when you watch the football on telly and shout at the referee.
Sort of like that, yeah. But at least you know you're doing that. Kirk doesn't. Kirk's been fooled into...
Yeah, at this point, they're all rendered unconscious by a painful sound that fills the room, a sonic attack of some sort.
Yeah, but let's not forget Lindstrom. He wants to teach...
Oh, he tries to shoot the projection. Idiot.
Yes, an idiot. I love it to bounce back, ricochet and kill him stone dead.
Yeah, he's one of those ones that deserves to be absorbed.
Yeah, thankfully Kirk dismisses this nonsense.
Yeah, it barely even warrants consideration. And as I said, at this point, some kind of shrill sonic blast renders them all unconscious. Spock, I think, takes a bit longer than the others to succumb, but...
Yeah, he'd get better ears.
Yeah, I thought it'd be worse for him.
Maybe he can manipulate them.
Maybe.
We then get a captain's log, or second, 3157.4. Scotty is in charge of the Enterprise, and they have been imprisoned by Landru. That's the party on Beta 3.
I think he refers to Landru as a creature.
What is he? He's not a pet. He's not a human. He's not a man.
He's something.
Yeah. He might not even be a creature if he's just a...
He's just a projection.
Yeah.
He's an OHP.
We're still in the cell. Kirk wakes his crew, which is missing McCoy, O'Neill, and one of the guards, who were all gone when they woke.
They're not important enough to have a name.
No.
That other guy, literally his captain and his first officer don't know his name. He's been with them. One of only 4 guys that have been with them for the last 3 days.
It's Lindstrom and, what's his name? Thingamabob.
The other guy.
Spock claims they're in a maximum security place and that they are phaserless as Lindstrom wakes with a headache. Good. But at maximum security, it's a door.
He's not even checked.
No, it's a stone room with a door.
Oh, it must be maximum security. Yep, probably. Yeah, that'd be stupid otherwise.
I know some people get us out of here, no problem.
We're out already.
But Kirk is more interested in working out how to escape than Lindstrom's headache, that is.
Spock's into full-on poo-poo mode. He poo-poos Kirk's suggestion that they might be able to escape using the same disobedience gambit.
Yeah, he thinks that they will have learned from this in the past and corrected their behaviours. But again, that's a massive assumption. Why would you think that?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite interesting for anyone who's watched future Star Trek that you haven't seen.
All right, I'll just check out just now then. You can speak to the listeners.
Yeah, you didn't like it the last time I did this. I think you probably edited it out as well.
Okay.
But there's some elements of this society that are quite Borg-like, and people will know what I'm talking about. We'll move on.
The tennis player?
Yes.
Very icy cold, clinical.
That is also Borg-like.
Okay.
McCoy and O'Neill return at this stage. Unless you want to mention the one thing that happens first.
Yes.
On you go.
I think Spock makes the point that the lawgiver's reaction was similar to a computer that has been fed imperfect data. And Kirk asks if they are therefore just machines. Again, where's he getting this from?
Well, it's a reasonable thing to check. So Spock says they're like machines, they're struggling to process data. Kirk says, is it possible they actually are machines? And Spock's like, no. Spock seems to be all-knowing again in this episode. He's observed everything very briefly and taken it all in and processed it very quickly.
Yeah, he says it's they're not machines, they are human, but they're
probably not human.
That's what he says.
I know, but how can they be human? They're not from Earth.
No. But they've got gaps.
Anyhow, as I say, McCoy and O'Neill return, and McCoy reminds them very much at this point of Sulu from earlier on.
Yes, it's obvious they are now off at the body and under the influence of Landru.
It's not Sulu it reminded me of. It's Ringo Starr.
Yeah?
Peace and love.
All that.
Every time he says, that's all he says. Peace and love.
Couple of fingers raised. The cloaked lawgivers come in at this point and order Kirk to come with them. He tries the simple refusal tactic, which this time is met with a threat of death.
Yes.
And therefore he has no option but to obey.
Justifying Spock's previous warning.
Yes. So with him gone, Spock asks McCoy what is going to happen to him. And he rabbits on about how he will find joy and tranquility through Landru. So he's clearly, he's been drinking the Kool-Aid, as they say.
Smoking something.
Yeah.
In the unpleasantly named absorption chamber.
Is that what I've written? Conversion room.
Okay. I'm calling it absorption chamber.
Okay, so it wasn't in the actual episode.
I don't know if it's officially named, but they've gone there to be absorbed, and they've been chained to the wall. This seems unnecessary when Sulu was converted by a simple poke of a stick. Yeah,
but Sulu's he's not Captain Kirk.
That's true.
He's bound to the wall like a carnival knife thrower assistant.
Yep. A guy called Murklop comes in.
Marplon.
Murklop.
No, Marplon.
Okay, I think it's the same difference, isn't it?
Okay.
This is just what the aliens say when they live. This is like Martian.
Yeah.
What do you call the Martians? Murklop and Marplon.
He is an older chap, and he relieves the three cloaked goons who are guarding Kirk before stepping into a control booth.
Yes, ominous.
So very. It looks as if he's about to be absorbed.
Remind you a little bit of Dagger of the Mind.
With the
Nurse Noel.
Yes.
Dr. Noel.
When they split in two?
No, where they do the brainwashing with the machine and he's in the little control booth and they're pointing.
Ah, yes, but also the one where he's...
Enemy Within.
Yeah. And yeah.
No. You're thinking of what a little girl's made of when he gets strapped to the spinner.
I'm always thinking of that with the...
Andrea,
yeah.
Okay.
Back down in the cell, Spock checks over McCoy and regretfully...
He's not checking over, he's trying to do a mind meld, I think.
Is he?
I think
Are you sure?
Because he refers to the control being too powerful.
Ah, right, okay. I didn't pick that up myself. I thought, right enough, he's not a doctor.
No.
Okay, fair enough. He also claims that there is little they can do unless they can get out, but the anxious Lundstrom doesn't want to accept that.
He's such a dunderhead. He's upset that they're being held captive by people who are so primitive.
That they wear, Stone Age robes. What is it called? Stone Age robe-wearing characters.
It's just like, this is so embarrassing.
We can't look.
He's such a meathead.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute... Squaddy. He's basically a squaddy.
Yeah, was it Jarhead?
That sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, but fortunately Spock contradicts him and claims that they are very powerful and very dangerous. But before they can discuss it further, the door opens and two of these characters enter, and it's now Spock's turn.
Yes, he's been summoned.
We're in the conversion stroke absorption room, and it appears that the deed has been done as Kirk is unshackled and he walks freely with a smile on his face.
Which is joy to Spock.
Yeah. We now cut to Spock. He's shackled in front of this booth and he prepares to be absorbed. However, things take an interesting turn when the lawgivers exit.
Have no fear, friend. The effect is harmless. My name is Marplon. I was too late to save your first two friends. They have been absorbed. Beware of them.
What about the captain?
He is unharmed, unchanged. I am the third man in Rhaegar's triad. We have been awaiting your return.
We are not Archons, Marplon.
Whatever you may call yourselves, you are in fulfillment of prophecy. We ask your help. Where is Rager? He will join us. He is immune to absorption. Hurry. We have not much time.
Who is Landru?
I cannot answer your questions now. Landru, he will hear. Here are your weapons. You may need them. Behave as you saw your captain behave. It is done.
Joy be with you. Peace and contentment.
Back in the cell, Kirk and Spock acknowledge one another's absence from the body, we might say.
Yeah, they have a little conclave and they agree to be wary of McCoy, who doesn't seem to trust their whispering.
Well, they say that, but they're not very subtle.
No.
They just move 4 feet further away from them.
Yeah, but he is easily convinced
For now.
on hearing them spew stuff about peace and tranquility in the body. That was a clip we heard at the top of the podcast. So, with McCoy now out of earshot, Kirk asks Spock for his theory, and he tells him that it is a soulless place, more like a tranquility factory.
Yep, Spock has jumped to the magical conclusion that Landru is not a living person.
And that's another anti-religious message as well, isn't it? There is no Landru. It's, you believe in what you want or what you're told or what you think you should believe or what people for generations, millennia have.
It's control of
Yeah.
people back. But then, in this case, there's, in your example, there's normally other people using this mythical figure to achieve their own agenda, but there's nobody really benefiting from this society here.
Really?
I mean, who's the one at the top taking advantage of everybody?
Maybe not one person at the top, but the lawgivers are certainly abusing their power, killing people when they feel like it, being able to walk about, everyone else being in fear. I'm sure the lawgivers have got
But they are receiving instructions to do that. That's not their
yes,
choice.
but there's still a hierarchy.
Yeah,
they're still
to a certain
above. They
extent,
can still tell the others what to do.
So, like our Weasel at the start of the episode, people like him probably have
Yes.
some kind of privilege, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Spock cites the Prime Directive at Kirk, saying you can't interfere in another society, but Kirk argues that the Prime Directive does not apply because this culture is neither living nor growing.
Again, what do you mean it's not? I don't accept that.
You think non-interference should apply?
Well, we can get to that. It's one of the issues I have with, and it's a contradiction that I have within myself. But
Okay.
we can get to that. I mean, I think I agree in principle, but not how Kirk's looking to apply his beliefs. Or
Okay.
yeah.
Rager and Murklar return at this stage. The two underground members.
Yes, and after passing McCoy with some positive affirmations, they hand over the communicators to Kirk.
At this, I think, around about this point, McCoy realises that they are not of the body.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I think that even though Rager and the other one are clearly on the same side as
Kirk and
Kirk,
Spock,
they're
yeah.
reluctant to give information about Landru. So
Yeah,
I
they think they're being listened to.
yeah, they still have this fear. And again, there's a touch of that sort of guilt as well. If you have been brought up in a religious environment, even though you might not believe it anymore or want to accept it, I mean, there's a traditional sort of
there's that side
Catholic
of it,
guilt, but I think any other religion, when you step away from it, if you've been indoctrinated or brought up with it, you feel as if,
I suspect, though, it might be more the case, given that this was written in the middle of the Cold War, that they're a warning against a surveillance state.
very
If
possible.
everyone thinks they're being listened and watched, then they behave as they should without having to actually be told to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Anyhow, McCoy gets a bit violent and has to be sleeper held by Kirk until he passes out.
He shouts out traitors and attacks Kirk, forcing him to choke him out.
Spock takes down O'Neill with a nerve pinch and then simply punches one of the lawgivers who shows up.
Yeah, and I like this because I'd taken this note before Kirk mentioned it. I thought, oh, that's quite old-fashioned, and I think Kirk immediately identifies it as being fairly primitive.
Yeah, makes the same point to Spock.
Yeah. So they do the old, I mean, this is a cliche scene in movies, you knock the bad guys out and you wear their uniforms so that you can, I think they do it in Star Wars and all sorts of...
Murklap at this point is starting to panic, though, I think, a little bit. I think the reality of the situation is beginning to dawn on him.
Yes, I think, because, they ask him to, they ask Marplon to take them to Landru, and he doesn't really want to get involved in that, but they pressurise him into doing it. He doesn't have, I suppose, he doesn't have any other option, really. He's came this far.
No. Meanwhile, Spock gets Scotty on the communicators and learns that there's only 6 hours left before the Enterprise is in a terminal position.
Yeah, and Kirk asks after Sulu, and then orders a guard to be placed on him, even though he appears to be peaceful at present. So I think he's anticipating a reaction.
Perhaps. Rager at this point notes that, or at least gives additional information about Landru, which I think is telling. So this part of the story is Landru, when he was alive, ended the time of war on a damaged world, taking people back to a simpler time.
Mm-hmm.
So the picture you get here is of a society that was not dissimilar to our own, ravaged by war, people fighting, and then something happened that allowed this individual to control everybody else, either through technology or whatever else, probably technology. And he used that technology to reverse society to a state where it was peaceful and then held it there.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples of this today still.
North Korea.
Yeah, there's places where, and in fact, there are certain countries, especially in places like the Middle East, where someone, perhaps taking over a terrible regime, or in some of the African countries where you've got people have taken over, and at the time they were supported and encouraged by all, part of the international community, and they had right on their side at that point in time, but over a number of years become despotic. They become, it's no longer it's a dictatorship. I mean, I suppose guys like Saddam Hussein, when they first got power, I don't think they were necessarily seen as pure evil and bad people.
Supported by the Western powers at that point.
Of course, and even their own people. But they become accustomed to the power, they start to abuse it, perhaps they don't necessarily...
And you see it in our countries as well. You see political advisors who think rules don't apply to them, but they can dictate to everybody else what they're supposed to do.
I'm thinking guys like Mugabe, when he was first brought in, he was probably a positive character for these people, but then, like I say, they get corrupted by power.
He's certainly got a more controversial legacy now.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yes. Marplon insists at this stage that Landru is still alive, but Kirk says they're ending this, and Rager bottles it.
Yeah, he claims that he was wrong, and starts screaming, and Spock has to subdue him with his nerve pinch. And so they set off with Marplon to find Landru.
So Merklap takes them to what he calls the Hall of Audiences.
Yes. We're outside. Kirk demands that the door be opened to this hall. Marplon obliges by simply bowing before it as they enter, and it appears empty. So,
he still seems reluctant, though.
Yeah, he's nervous.
Yeah,
I'm sure this is a place where you don't just go for fun or for a chat. It's a sort of place. It's a serious place where either good things or bad things might happen or might be thought to happen.
That's it.
In any case, it appears empty, so Kirk shouts that they are the Archons and they've come to speak. And at this point, a projection of Landru appears on the wall.
Despite my efforts to save you, you have invaded the body and you are causing great harm.
We have no intention of causing harm.
Obliteration is necessary. The infection is strong. For the good of the body, you must die. It is a great sorrow.
We do not intend to die.
All who saw you, all who know of your presence here, must be excised. The memory of the body will be cleansed.
Listen to me.
Useless, Captain. A projection.
Yes, Mr. Spock. Let's have a look at the projector.
So they phaser through the projection and the wall to reveal a computer room, which they both seem to have expected.
Yeah, it's a bit like I said earlier in the Square of Gothos when they smash the mirror and find the machine.
Yeah, Landru was just a machine all along, and the society was simply a mechanical interpretation of perfection, peace and harmony, but without soul, apparently.
So they say, because machines, as Star Trek reminds us, can never be fully human.
Never, apart from Andrea.
There's a whole character devoted to this in The Next Generation.
Right, okay. They seem very sure of themselves and go to phaser this machine out of existence, but fortunately, I think, it backfires, and the voice tells him, or Kirk, that their devices have been neutralised and they will meet the same fate. That's what they get. You can't just go blasting around in here and
shoot everything.
You have no idea what it controls.
Yeah, Kirk decides to rely on his wit to get him out of the situation.
How does he do that?
He debates the computer into conceding that it's evil.
How? What does he say?
I think they talk about the health of the body and how creativity is essential for... They've just made this up, but creativity is essential for the health of the body, and the computer has removed creativity from this society, and therefore it is the evil that must be eradicated.
Yeah, I think Spock, he notes that the good of the body holds the key, so Kirk, I think, understands what he's getting at and asks Landru what the good is.
Yeah, this is how he gets it to tie itself in knots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it enables Kirk to claim that the body is dying and that Landru is responsible for killing it. It has disobeyed the Prime Directive.
Its own Prime Directive, not to be mistaken for the Federation's Prime Directive.
And so, feeling he has the machine on the back caster, he pushes it further and asks for evidence of how it has helped support the full potential of the individuals of the body.
The machine hasn't really been trained to debate because it doesn't participate very well in this conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, effectively at the end of the whole debate, the whole argument, the machine self sort of kills itself, doesn't it?
Yes, it accepts Kirk's premise that it is in fact the evil and it's therefore obliged to destroy itself.
Yeah. And even although two lawgivers enter at this point, it's of no use.
Yeah, they've got no instructions, so they just stand there.
Yeah, I think they realise that, well, I've seen behind the curtain.
I think they come in asking for instruction, don't they? They come in they stumble in because they're suddenly without this guidance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do. Kirk tells Morgoth at this point that he's on his own. He has to sort things out, and hopefully you're up to that. Cheerio.
Yeah, I really was quite shocked and offended by Kirk's attitude and behaviour here. Rather than contemplating the gravity and impact of destroying these people's belief system and society, he simply says, right, that's us, get on with it. Everything's changed now. You'll have to find another... He actually says, start looking for another job. What?
Yeah, your whole society, all the millions of folk on this planet, it's all changing, so sort that out. Cheerio. And
this is the contradiction I've got. I have no problem with someone exposing and opening people's minds to religion or the lack of it, or the lack of necessity.
Sure.
I'm quite on board with that. However, what you can't and shouldn't do is, I suppose, take the approach of of a missionary or of a
proselytizer,
a crusader.
Yeah.
You shouldn't simply barge into some society, ruin it, destroy it, try to convert them. If they can't be converted, simply tie it up in knots and then leave.
It's quite a good metaphor for the regime changes imposed by some of the Western powers on our planet.
Yes.
If you look at Iraq, you look at Afghanistan, places like that, where they end up creating vacuums for groups like ISIS to emerge.
Of course, if you get in and do this to a society, of course you're going to be seen to be the enemy. Someone who, let's say, even if you've got a genuine...
I would be stunned on this planet if the cult of Landru didn't reform under these lawgivers.
Yeah.
And have some sway.
Yeah. That you cannot act like this as an invading force.
Just impose your will.
Impose your will. It's not even just the taking down, for example, a government, which can be replaced with a more effective government.
Yeah. Or if you're going to enforce your will, enforce it. Put the structures in place.
Yes.
But they're not doing any of that.
So when I was watching, I mean, I was taking notes live, so I didn't watch it all and then go back and note with some sort of hindsight. I felt that, so the next scene you see that, or we find out when they're up in the bridge, that there's a throwaway line about, oh yeah, Lindstrom's been left behind. He's a sociologist and he's going to help.
He's obsessed with Tula.
Yeah, and he's going to help rebuild. But I reckon that they've watched this the first time, the producers, and said, that looks harsh. There needs to be something else here to...
We'll do a voiceover.
Yes, we put a one-liner in. Yeah, it's cool, we'll sort it. But that's very much the sort of attitude that you get when nations invade other nations. It's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll put in play all this.
We don't need an exit plan.
No, we'll don't worry.
Nothing for post-conflict.
Infrastructure there, everyone will be absolutely... So give us a year.
What about all the depleted uranium you've left in the street? Nah, it'll be fine.
A year's time, they'll love us.
Yeah. Democracy.
Yeah.
We've brought them democracy and freedom of thought, therefore they will be happy.
Yeah, so like I said...
And if not, they're ungrateful.
I have absolutely no problem with this nonsense of religion being exposed as what it is, but you cannot simply get in there and literally within a day wipe it out, destroy it, and then leave them high and dry and say, okay, these people have grown up with this in mind. This is the only... They've been sort of institutionalised. How are they going to cope? How do they know? They can't look after themselves. And I tell you what, Lindstrom is not the man to do it. You've left that little shit in charge. He's going to rebuild society. Look at the nick of him. His attitude and his actions. He's the last person you want. You go back down there in a year's time and it'll be absolute... You thought that was chaos before?
Be worse.
Well, Lindstrom hopefully would be fucking hung. You know, he'd be sorted out rapid style.
Some kind of, revolt, internal revolt against him.
In fact, he's a type, what I said earlier on there about, you get a little bit of power. Yeah, I mean, Lindstrom is like one of these, a country, where you put in place your own man to run it. Right, Lindstrom, you make sure the society is rebuilt.
I am king.
Yep, all of a sudden it's called me Lord Lindstrom. Yes. Anyone who disobeys me will be getting the taser. 10 years later, he's running it. He's a despotic maniac.
Or he's been killed.
Hopefully the latter. He's been not putting up with this from you, Lindstrom.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was not satisfied or happy with what they appear to have achieved in this episode, or how they've went about achieving it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back in the episode, we get an example of the incredibly lax security on the Enterprise.
Why is that?
Well, Scotty comes on comms and says that he's not getting any heat rays anymore. That's cool. Sulu's fine, and we see Sulu come on the bridge. He's meant to be getting guarded in his room.
Yeah.
Oh, he says, I'm fine now, let me out. On you go, Sulu. Up the bridge. No problem, mate.
I quite liked it. He gave a sort of cheeky little shrug of the shoulders.
What was that all about? It
was just me, just still with my character. Yeah.
Then we get the captain's log that you talked about, where they say that they've dumped Lindstrom because he was insufferable.
Yes.
And up on the bridge, Spock and Kirk give us a little denouement.
Tell me about it.
Spock notes that the computer that the original Landru left was a marvellous feat of engineering, the way it was able to control an entire planet's worth of people. And I think people on the other side of the planet must be wondering what the heck is going on
here. Yeah.
Anyway.
They communicate the message down to Lindstrom and ask for an update. I mean, it's only been, I don't know how long, a day or so, and he says, yeah, everything's cool, it's almost back to normal.
Everyone's
fighting already. It's like, what are you doing?
He's already lost control.
Yes. He's getting, like I say, he'll be getting beheaded.
Let alone, he's in one town.
Yeah.
So even the people in the valley or the next town will be like, who's this Lindstrom guy? What's going on?
And also,
it's like folk in other countries in this planet are like, Lindstrom? No.
And just because he's a sociologist, it doesn't mean he's a leader. They're going to look up to him and he knows he's got any sort of administrative capabilities.
He's already exposed himself as the worst kind of meathead.
Anyway.
Spock notes that mankind has often wished for a world as peaceful as the one that Landru provided, and Kirk reflects that they are lucky enough never to have had it.
Got a point, mind you.
Absolutely. Don't want what you wish for.
No.
Careful what you wish for.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that's us, and I think I've made in the last few moments, made my feelings clear on this. It was not a good episode, an interesting episode.
Raised some good points.
It did, yeah. Bit weird.
Yeah.
Story not
watertight.
No.
But hey, it certainly raised some good points for discussion, and that's what you want.
Yeah, it's certainly a memorable episode. I don't think I'll forget it in a hurry.
All the Ragers and Murklops and all those guys, they were good.
Yeah.
Presumably, O'Neill and McCoy were fully restored as well as Sulu. They hadn't been... they would be able to recover their previous mental capacity.
90% off it.
Yeah. We got the same sort of theme that we had in Court Martial last week with people being superior to machines, and you can't let machines be in charge.
Never.
Must have been a fairly common concern back in the 60s, I guess. Maybe more so now. Folk are worried about AI now, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I think it's a lot more developed than what people realise.
In a way, this is almost leading into the Terminator movies.
Yeah.
How often did you think Festival happened?
Once a month.
Well, they tied it up, hadn't they, from the previous one? So
Yeah.
I thought maybe once a year. But it'd be good if it was every day.
Yeah.
Do you think the censors would have allowed this to be aired if they'd realised there was an anti-religious message?
Well, I took an anti-religious message from it. Do you think that's what the message was?
Well, like I said, I think it's more anti-surveillance society.
Really?
Cold War type stuff.
Yeah, but the ultimate surveillance is God, isn't it?
Well, or the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the ultimate God's
but
above
in
the
this,
state.
in this, you could say it's, that's what the metaphor was. It depends what you view it as.
Yeah.
I suppose we're looking at it through a different lens now than they did in the 60s.
They certainly are. But either way, I mean, I think that it was, fairly, I wouldn't go as far as saying brave, but it has to be lauded that they took on the subject matter, I think.
Definitely. I've got a note to ask you how you think society would progress with Lindstrom's guidance, so I'm not going to set you off again. We've already covered that.
I think, my feelings are clear. I don't think it would last very long.
Anything else that the episode raised for you that you want to talk about?
No.
Did you enjoy the performance of Sid Haig?
Well, I'm hoping that you've mentioned.
I've not, so if you want to talk about him, this is
No,
your
I'm not.
opportunity.
No, you're but come on, Sid Haig.
Nah, I've never heard of him.
Right, doesn't matter. Okay, just tell me who you have heard of.
Okay, let's go through this. The original air date 9th of February 1967. It was directed by Joseph Pevney. This is the second of his record equalling 14 episodes, and if you go back to Arena, I talked about him a bit there. Boris Sobelman wrote the teleplay from a Gene Roddenberry story.
Oh, big bosso.
This was his only Star Trek episode, but he did earn a Writers Guild Award nomination for his work on this one. And outside of Star Trek, he worked on shows like Dr. Kildare, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mannix, and he died in 1971 at the age of 61. Harry Towns, you'll have recognised him. He played Rager. This was his only Star Trek role, but he was already a well-established television actor at this point of his career, having appeared in shows like Perry Mason and The Fugitive. And he would go on to appear in many more shows, including Buck Rogers in the 25th Century and Knots Landing. He served in the Air Corps during World War II and ultimately became ordained as an Episcopalian priest in 1974, combining that role with acting until 1989 when he retired as an actor and committed himself to the priesthood. He died in 2001 at the age of 86.
Clearly the message in this week's episode.
Over his head.
Yeah.
Torrin Thatcher played Murklop. He only made this one Star Trek appearance as well, but his acting career spanned from 1927 until 1976, and it included appearances in films like Witness for the Prosecution and The Crimson Pirate, as well as television shows like Mission Impossible and Land of the Giants. He died in 1981, shortly before I was born, at the age of 76. Bryony Farrell, she's our Columbo connection this week.
Is she?
She made her only Star Trek appearance here. She played Tula from the Valleys, or who was concerned about the Valleys. And later she showed up in the 1975 Columbo mystery, A Case of Immunity, along with Jeff Goldblum.
Who did she play?
Xenia. She was one of the women in the...
Picket line?
I don't think she was in the picket line. I think she might have been in the embassy.
Was she?
Not an embassy on this occasion. What was it they called it?
Legation.
That's the one. She also appeared in shows like The Bionic Woman and La Femme Nikita before she died in 2018.
She was married to someone famous.
At the age of 78. Was it Sid Haig? Was she married to Sid Haig?
Carry on.
I'm going to skip over Sid Haig because I don't have anything to say about him. But also Charles Macaulay and John Lorimer, who played the hologram of Landru and who played Tamar, respectively, because they have future Star Trek appearances and they're both Columbo connections, so I'm saving them up.
Quite right.
Morgan Farley played Hackham. That was the grass.
Yeah.
This was the first of 2 Star Trek appearances for him, but he also appeared in films like Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff.
Good movie.
And High Noon.
Very good movie.
He died in 1988 at the age of 90, so he's one of our 19th century babies.
Always good to have one of those.
Impossible now.
Yeah.
Carl Held played Lindstrom, your favourite, who was abandoned on the planet, partially due to a storyline that was cut before filming where he had a romantic interest in Tula. He only made this one Star Trek appearance, but he also showed up in programmes like MacGyver and Ellie Law, and he's now 88 years old.
Still going strong.
As far as we know. Sean Morgan played O'Neill. He was a college friend of the casting director, which might explain why this was the third of his 7 Star Trek appearances. But this is the first for which he received a credit. He also appeared in shows like Mannix and Harry and the Hendersons, and he's now 79 years old.
The show Harry and the Hendersons or the movie?
The show, I believe.
Okay.
Lev Myler played Bilar. Remember Bilar?
I do. Creepy Bilar.
The guy right at the start that I said had terrible acting.
Yep.
He's an acting teacher. And he also showed up in an episode of Mrs. Columbo.
Really?
And perhaps he's best known, well, not best known, but some of his best or most heard work is as ADR vocals.
Right.
There's a lot of that, ADR vocals.
I do, yeah.
Listening to the listeners will know, or should I explain it?
I'm sure I know what dubbing is.
Yeah. So he shows up in films that include Die Hard with a Vengeance and Independence Day. Probably playing Bruce Willis and Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he's now 86 years old and he's got a website at levmyler.com which is still active, although I'm not sure whether he still teaches acting because it's not been updated for over 10 years.
Okay, he might have said the iconic Yippee-Ki-Yay melon farmer then.
Do you think so?
Possibly.
That was in the first Die Hard though.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, it wasn't Bruce Willis?
Don't know.
Yeah. Well, he might have said it in this film.
Could have.
Who knows? Or maybe it was Jeremy Irons' voiceover. Anyhow, on to trivia. I don't have anything on Sid Haig, as you've mentioned. His name's, the more I say it, the more it rings a bell.
He was always played that sort of, he always played a bad guy.
Yeah.
TV shows as well. He wasn't like a star, but if you wanted a heavy, a
character
biker
sort of guy,
type
yeah.
heavy, he would be the man.
There you go. That gives him a nod.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first episode to mention the Federation's Prime Directive, which we shouldn't confuse with Landru's Prime Directive, a completely separate Prime Directive. We'll hear about it again a lot. According to the trivia section on the original VHS release, the Archons was a club that Gene Roddenberry joined when he was at school. And in terms of international titles, the Germans go with Landru und die Ewigkeit, Landru and Eternity, Ewigkeit. The Portuguese go with Hora Rubra, Red Hour. And our Japanese friends opted for Beta Suri no Doko Saisha, which means the dictator on Beta 3, which makes no sense. Unless you're referring to the computer.
Yeah.
Next week is the 22nd episode of Season 1, Space Seed. That's the one that I told you to watch before you went to meet Bill Shatner.
Which I didn't get to do. Damn you, COVID.
And you didn't get to watch this either.
No, didn't have to.
Fresh for us all this week. I watched it actually before I went to see Bill Shatner, but I'm going to watch it again.
Do you say Bill Shatner because that's what, like, if you know me, call him, like people who say...
He's a close personal friend.
Yeah, people who call him Bobby De Niro.
No, a bit like folks say Jimmy Doohan. I think it's just how they were known.
Okay.
Generally, by people.
Yeah, I'll respectfully call him Mr. William Shatner.
You do that.
Yeah, and if he comes...
He's still not coming on your podcast. He's got a no podcasts policy.
He does, but because he's old.
I think he hates podcasts.
Doesn't get it.
He just hates them.
Yeah, that's fine.
As a medium, generally. They're not worth his time or effort.
Probably doesn't get paid enough money, that's why he hates them.
He can reach more people with a tweet.
Yeah, if he was given enough money, he would love them.
Well, I'm not getting involved in that conversation.
In the same way he didn't know anything Priceline until he was given a lot of money or computers and he went, yeah, okay, I'll say what you want, give me the cash.
Take words you say.
Whatever, yeah. Anyway, yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll catch up with folk next week. I've already given them the social media blurb at the top of the episode, so bye for now.
Cheerio.